Daisy Celeste Gilmore will go missing between July 7th and 11th, according to General Hospital teasers and updates, and the newborn's kidnapping will rock the Port Charles neighborhood. This week's GH trailer shows a panicked Sasha Corbin asking for her daughter in the nursery, where she notices an empty crib. Sasha hurries out of the room in the preview, only to run into Michael Corinthos while telling her baby daddy that someone has stolen their child. This is every parent's greatest nightmare, and poor Sasha has already been through enough baby-related stress to have to deal with something like this. But here she is. Fans of General Hospital are aware that someone has been watching Daisy since her infancy, so it's hardly surprised that an abduction plot is unfolding. These weekly teasers can be deceptive, so it's possible that someone simply scooped up the child to console her if she was sobbing, or to return her to Sasha. But, given that someone has been monitoring both the baby and Michael's children via the windows, you never know. Daisy could be kidnapped. There is a good likelihood that someone has kidnapped Daisy, which would disrupt not only Sasha, Michael, and the Quartermaines, but also the entire community. When Sasha was given the wrong baby at the hospital, the serial indicated that Daisy might have been kidnapped. This is when the stalker narrative began, and fans believe Willow Tate may be involved. Willow's mental health suffered significantly after she lost custody of Wiley and Amelia Corinthos a few weeks ago. She had a severe breakdown in court following the decision, and has been behaving weirdly ever since. General Hospital spoilers. Daisy's kidnapping sends shockwaves through Port Charles. Willow may have did. There has been widespread conjecture that Willow has dissociative identity disorder, as stalking a kid contradicts her persona as a mother and nurse. Willow was at the hospital when Daisy was with Sasha, and she is quite familiar with the Q mansion, therefore watchers of GH suspect she is Daisy's stalker. She helped deliver the child when Sasha went into labor, while testifying in Willow and Michael's divorce and custody hearings. Furthermore, Willow may feel justified in kidnapping Sasha's daughter, given the death of her own children. However, it is becoming increasingly evident that Willow is a suspect. Eventually, Daisy's stalker may be anyone, including an old rival of Sasha from her scamming days. Jen Sidwell was aware of Sasha's pregnancy, and has yet to forgive Holly Sutton for tricking him. Because Daisy is her grandchild, he may have hired a hitman to locate and steal the youngster. There are several potential suspects. General Hospital teasers indicate that Sasha's world will be turned upside down when she realizes her child is missing. However, with Michael's power, influence, and resources, as well as the super spy Scorpio family's dedication, Daisy will eventually be returned to her mother. According to General Hospital teasers, LuLU Spencer's life in Port Charles is unraveling as her son, Rocco Falconeri, confronts the horrific truth about his birth origins, which are linked to Britt Westbourne's embryo theft. Brooke Lynn Quartermaine's angry research into Rocco's origins, intended to harm LuLU for mistakenly revealing Giovanni Gio Palmieri as her son with Dante Falconeri, has backfired, leaving Rocco doubting his parents' love and honesty. As LuLU fights to keep her family together, will Rocco's concerns sever their link, or can she regain his trust? Rocco's world is rocked by Britt's secret. Rocco's revelation of Britt's ploy kidnapping LuLU and Dante's embryo has disturbed his sense of identity, compounding his anguish from LuLU's coma and Sam McCall's death, as well as discovering he has a new brother he never knew about. All of this familial turbulence is bad for the soul. His suspicions may originate from the belief that LuLU and Dante hid the facts to protect themselves, not him. Brooke Lynn's irresponsible snooping has fueled Rocco's distrust, leading him to question whether his parents' love is genuine. Will his hurt drive him away? Or can LuLU and Dante demonstrate their love in a real heart-to-heart? But let's be honest, this will be a greater challenge for LuLU than Dante. GH spoilers. LuLU's desperate fight to save her son. LuLU's spiraling world, already stretched by Dante's rage at the Gio disclosure, meets a new problem as Rocco withdraws. Her attempts to explain may falter if Rocco perceives her as deceitful or aggressive in any way, such as hitting Brooke Lynn in the face. Dante's dual loyalties, balancing Gio and Rocco, will unintentionally raise strain. General Hospital spoilers. LuLU and Dante's world spiral as Rocco begins to doubt his parents' love. If LuLU and Dante are unable to reach Rocco, his doubts may lead him to rebel or seek leadership from someone else. Can they rebuild their relationship? Or will Rocco's distrust destroy what's left of them? A family on the verge of collapse. Rocco's misgivings may reverberate throughout the family for some time, putting a burden on Dante and Lulu's co-parenting and Joe's fragile integration, which is currently stalled. If Laura Collins or Olivia Quartermain intervene, they may be able to bridge the divide, but Brooke Lynn's actions risk escalating the situation. The fans are going crazy online with some pleading, "Don't GOR Rocco," and fearing he would never forgive his parents. Will Rocco's concerns about Dante and Lulu's love devastate their world, or will they strive to prove their devotion before their tie is severed? Keep checking back with us, Monet. July 7, 2025. Vaughn makes a pass on Emma, Gio questions Carly about Sunny, and Sidwell informs Anna that Sunny is chasing Natalia. In the previous GH recap, Rocco confronted Lulu about Britt, while Laura wanted answers from Sunny regarding the mafia conflict. Emma joins Gio at the pool and asks whether he had the night off. He would work non-stop if he could. He's still concerned about Sunny. He wants to know who he truly is. Emma proposes that he ask someone. Joss is sitting in a corner reading about Dalton when her mother appears and enthusiastically tells her about the forward tonight. She looks forward to spending time with her. Joss believes the fire reminded her of the fragility of life and the value of family. They discuss about what the family has gone through. Carly feels grateful that they are secure right now. Joss stares at Vaughn as he removes his shirt. Her mother notices and suggests she go chat to him. When she joins Vaughn, he encourages her to pretend their kiss never occurred. They plan to distract Emma with animals. Vaughn tells her he lost his childhood dog. She's not sure if this story is true, but she knows Emma will love it. She says that she is the finest way to set Emma off. They initiate a struggle for Emma's advantage. Joss tells Vaughn they're done and storms out. Emma smiles. Emma joins Vaughn, and they discuss how selfish Joss is before toasting to better days ahead. They start chatting about the spirits of animals and the animal rights organization she founded. He would love to get involved. Gio confronts Carly and demands to speak with her about Sunny. He informs her about Tracy's cautions about Sunny and how they contradict with the man he knows. Carly informs him that the reality is tricky. Sunny was drawn into things before he was mature enough to understand properly, but he has always loved his family. She reveals that Michael and Dante have also struggled with these difficulties, but Sunny will stay in your life if you allow him. Gio chooses to speak with Sunny's boys. Anna visits Windmere to ask Sidwell about Natalia's death. He says that if she needs answers she should speak with Sunny. Marco said she was Sunny's loose end. He reveals that Natalia was aware of Sunny's cardiac problems and informed others. Perhaps he discovered that she had broken his trust? Daisy's kidnapping caused an unexpected jolt in Port Charles. The peaceful facade that the community had been holding to began to tremble violently, as whispers erupted into alarm and secrets began to spill loose. Trina was the first to discover something was wrong when Daisy failed to show up for her volunteer stint at the community center. Everyone assumed Daisy had simply taken a personal day, perhaps to relax after the recent tension at home and school. But as the hours passed and her phone continued to go straight to voicemail, concern turned to fear. Portia acted quickly, informing Curtis, who immediately contacted Jordan. Daisy's absence quickly became a full-fledged catastrophe after an official missing persons report was filed. The community began to mobilize, printing posters, reconstructing timelines, and questioning friends and family. As the number of suspects got longer, so did the concern, particularly among individuals who had lately met contact with Daisy in suspicious circumstances. Brooke Lynn was the first to come under suspicion, but she fiercely denied involvement. Daisy and Brooke Lynn had a visible falling out at the recent deception board meeting, and several employees overheard their furious conversation. Brooke Lynn claimed she was merely attempting to safeguard the company's reputation, but her tone, as well as the veiled threats about Daisy overstepping, tormented anyone in earshot. Jordan couldn't arrest Brooke Lynn without evidence, but the tension between her and Lois, who had grown shockingly close to Daisy, erupted behind closed doors. Lois refused to think her daughter could be responsible for such a brutal deed, but she began to wonder how far Brooke Lynn might have gone in a fit of rage or desperation. Daisy's investigation into a hidden deception campaign that Brooke Lynn had been attempting to conceal, something involving offshore accounts and forged documents, made matters worse. If Daisy had discovered proof and threatened to make it public, would Brooke Lynn have considered it a betrayal too great to forgive? Michael and Willow were drawn into the issue by their individual connections. Michael, who collaborated closely with Daisy on a recent philanthropic endeavor, took Daisy's abduction personally. Daisy, he remembered, was educated, idealistic, and determined, someone who would not simply go unless something major happened. Willow, who had mentored Daisy via a youth leadership program, was equally upset. She contacted Nina, hoping Crimson might help promote awareness and increase public attention. Nina, despite recent conflicts with Willow, consented. For once, they shared a same goal, though the temporary armistice did little to alleviate domestic tensions. Meanwhile, Jason quietly began his own research. He had kept a quiet profile since returning to Port Charles, but Daisy's kidnapping drew him back into action. Working alongside the police, Jason tracked Daisy's last known connections and actions. Daisy had met someone in an alley behind the Corinthos coffee facility 2 nights before disappearing, according to security footage. The guy was cloaked and the footage was blurry, but Jason was familiar with the streets. He suspected that the meeting was not random. As Jason dug deeper, he discovered a worrisome possibility. Daisy may have stumbled into something related not only to deception, but also to a larger operation involving extortion and corporate espionage. Daisy appeared to have been quietly gathering information, possibly with the intention of safeguarding those she cared about. However, in doing so, she had attracted the notice of deadly individuals who operated in the shadows and had little concern for innocent lives. Jordan returned to the police station, where he faced a growing wall of frustration. Each new lead fizzled or implicated someone she didn't want to believe was capable of kidnapping. When the ransom note finally arrived, it simply added to the intrigue. The note was a warning, not a demand for money. Back off or she disappears forever. The note was typed, antiseptic, and untraceable, but its message was clear. Daisy's owner desired control rather than money. Sasha, Daisy's confidant in recent months, was devastated. She chastised herself for encouraging Daisy to be courageous and speak up for the truth, even if it was risky. Now she worried if her well-intended advice had led Daisy into the arms of someone who intended to harm her. Maxie attempted to calm her, but even she couldn't conceal her anxiety. Deception was already on the verge of collapse owing to internal scandals, and the disappearance of a cherished employee posed a threat to the entire brand. Drew was caught up in the storm across town. His recent business operations, which he had thought were strictly confidential, now felt exposed. Daisy had previously interned with a nonprofit Drew supported. If she had linked the nonprofit shell accounts to a potential money route into a Port Charles development project Drew was overseeing, she may have been a liability. Drew tried to seem casual when Jordan called him in for interrogation, but the edge in his voice revealed more than he wanted. Christina, a tireless fighter for justice and community, organized a citywide awareness campaign. Flyers were circulated, TV programs broadcast, and the hashtag #FindDaisy trended on social media. Molly, who was still adjusting to recent judicial changes, assisted in developing a legal strategy for Daisy's family in the event that the case proceeded to federal court. Alexis provided emotional support to those afflicted, establishing a modest but powerful presence behind the scenes. Meanwhile, Joe's role grew unusually convoluted. He and Daisy had grown close, too close, others claimed. They'd been seen having late-night discussions, taking lengthy walks by the bay, and going on coffee dates that were disturbingly amorous. Gio said they were only friends, but Trina wasn't convinced. A part of her felt deceived, while another was concerned that Gio knew more than he was revealing. She questioned him, and while he denied involvement, he revealed Daisy had told him something serious shortly before her abduction. Daisy, according to Gio, discovered a link between a local IT investor and a series of fraudulent medical records associated with GH. The papers accused several doctors and, if revealed, may jeopardize their reputations and livelihoods. Gio encouraged her to drop it and let the authorities handle it, but Daisy believed that justice required telling the truth, no matter the cost. If that account was true, Daisy's kidnapping was not personal but strategic. Someone was attempting to keep her silent long enough to remove all evidence. The terrible question was whether they intended to release her once their tracks were covered, or to ensure she never talked again. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dex. Dex, who was still recovering from his own tragedy, had been quietly watching street chatter for Sunny, who was still being closely monitored due to federal pressure. Dex intercepted a message concerning a package being housed in a private hangar near Port Charles. He passed the information to Jason, who moved quickly. With Spinelli's assistance, they traced the hangar's ownership to a shell business tied to a name that had appeared several times during Daisy's investigation: Emery Slate. Slate, a former IT executive and quiet investor, had recently begun looking into GH and deception. His hobbies were hazy, his background dubious, and his connections diverse. Jason confronted Slate at a country club under the cover of a business inquiry, quietly requesting details. Slate did not crack, but Jason noticed a spark of recollection when Daisy's name was spoken. Jason's instincts went into overdrive. Working with Sam and Spinelli, he created a digital trail that led them to a storage facility on the outskirts of town. With Jordan's reluctant permission, they assaulted the facility late one night. They discovered Daisy in a closed room behind soundproof walls and security cameras, shaken, weak, but still alive. The rescue sent shockwaves across the town. Port Charles was relieved, but an undercurrent of anxiety persisted. Daisy had been rescued, but the perpetrators remained at large. Worse, Daisy recalled little of her confinement. Her memory was hazy, as if she had been drugged. What little she remembered presented a disturbing picture of chilly professionalism. Whoever snatched her wasn't acting on whim. Someone with financial resources planned, executed, and funded this. Daisy returned to the hospital and began her sluggish recuperation. Willow and Sasha hardly left her side, and Nina sent crimson flowers along with a handwritten note of support. Brooke Lynn paid a visit once, and it was an unpleasant encounter in which neither woman said much. Daisy gave nothing away, and Brooke Lynn fled swiftly, looking uneasy. Behind the scenes, the fallout had just begun. Jordan reopened many cases involving Emery Slate, while Jason and Sunny began investigating who else could be involved. Drew quietly stepped aside from his development project, and Deception scheduled a press conference to announce a new transparency program, which few considered to be much more than public relations. Port Charles has been shook to the core. Lives were upended, reputations were called into question, and friendships strained. Daisy's bravery and close call reminded everyone that truth has a cost, and sometimes the individuals who fight the hardest for justice pay the most. Daisy, on the other hand, refused to back down. As she regained her strength, she informed Willow that she intended to testify about what she remembered, regardless of the consequences. The city needed to know what had been hiding behind its glossy veneer. And as Jason watched silently from the doorway, he knew Daisy might have become more than simply a victim. She could be the spark for true change in Port Charles. That made her an even bigger target. Rocco had always been a bright and inquisitive child. He could tell when something wasn't quite right, even when the adults around him pretended everything was okay. His home has recently become a quiet warfare of awkward silences, fake grins, and different chambers. LuLU and Dante were attempting to shield him from the truth, but by doing so, they were just making matters worse. The tension between them had gotten stronger with each passing day, and Rocco felt every bit of it. It began subtly. Missing dinners, distracted discussions, and fewer shared moments. Dante's position on the police force had become more demanding, and LuLU, who was still adjusting to life after recovering from a coma and attempting to find her place, was struggling in ways that no one could fully comprehend. She'd wasted so much time, and her absence had left an emotional vacuum between her and the people she cared about, particularly her son. Rocco would run into his parents' arms after school. Now he returned home with his rucksack slung over one shoulder, peering into the house as if unsure who would be present. Dante would occasionally disappear while working late. Sometimes LuLU was locked in her room, staring at old photo albums or pacing the floor. The laughter that had previously filled their home had vanished. The warmth had been replaced by distance, and Rocco was old enough to notice. One night, he overheard their argument. It wasn't loud, but it was intense. Two individuals whispering quietly, hoping not to wake him. But he awoke, and he stood at the top of the steps, listening to pieces of sentences that made no sense but were still terrible. Words like lost time, misunderstood, different now, and what's best for Rocco raced through his mind, resting in his chest like stones. He did not mention it the next day, but his manner changed. He asked questions that no parent could answer in a way that was understandable to a child his age. Why aren't we eating together anymore? How come you and Dad aren't laughing like you used to? Are you planning to leave again, Mom? Each question pierced at Lulu's heart, and Dante strained not to reveal his remorse. They both said they were doing their best, but Rocco wasn't convinced. Children comprehend when something is incorrect without the need of words. They feel it. At school, Rocco became more withdrawn. His professors noticed the difference: less engagement and more time staring out the window. He was courteous, well-behaved, and quieter. His pictures, which were formerly colorful and depicted family settings, have darkened. When his teacher inquired about it, he shrugged and stated he was simply weary. But the truth was that he was afraid. "I'm scared of what might happen next." He was terrified that his parents would no longer love each other. "I was afraid they didn't love him enough to mend things." Meanwhile, Lulu was dealing with her own issues. After years in a coma, she awoke bewildered. Life had gone on without her. Dante had hardened, became less open, and seemed stranger than she had imagined. The man who had previously made her laugh till she cried now appeared cautious. They tried to continue where they left off, but too much had changed. Lulu was yearning to reconnect with Rocco, but she often found herself paralyzed, unsure how to overcome the gap. She wasn't sure how to be the mother he remembered. She feared he didn't remember her at all, or not in the way she preferred. Dante, on the other hand, felt torn between responsibility and contempt. He had pulled things together in her absence, raising Rocco, grieving her, and moving on as best he could. Her homecoming had upended everything. He wanted to make it work for Rocco, but his past tormented him. Lulu was different. He was different, and the fantasy of a smooth reunion gradually faded into the terrible reality that they might not be able to repair what was shattered. Therapy had been advised several times, including family and couples therapy, but neither had followed through. They kept telling themselves that things will improve with time, but time was not the healing balm they had hoped for. If anything, it made matters more complicated. And Rocco, caught in the crossfire, started internalizing the blame. He stopped inquiring about doing activities as a family. He started making reasons for staying late at school. When asked whether he wanted to see a movie together, he responded he was weary. In reality, he did not want to be in the same room as both of them at the same time. It was too unpleasant and unpredictable. He had no idea when the tension would break into another silent quarrel or awkward silence. One evening, Rocco simply asked his father, "Do you still love Mom?" Dante was caught off surprise. He blurted out an answer, claiming that of course he did, and that love was complicated at times but never went away. But his tone did not match the words, and Rocco could tell. He glanced down at his hands, nodded, and changed the subject. That night he laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what would happen if they no longer loved each other. Will he have to pick between them? Will he lose the life he knows? Lulu, who was ignorant of the talk, experienced her own moment of reckoning. She found a letter that Rocco had started but never finished. It was folded into one of his notebooks and simply stated, "I'm not sure what I did wrong. I just want to be a family again. I miss how we used to be," she said, clutching the paper to her bosom and crying for the first time in weeks. It was the naked truth of a child who felt abandoned by those who had sworn to protect him. The next morning she attempted to make things different. She prepared Rocco's favorite breakfast, urged that they all sit together, tried to joke, and asked him about school. Dante played along, but it seemed empty. Rocco grinned, but his eyes did not light up. Lulu knew that making tiny gestures would not solve the problem. They urgently needed assistance. That night, she informed Dante that they were going to therapy, no more excuses. She was done pretending everything was fine. Dante did not argue. For once he agreed. They scheduled the appointment, and for the first time in months, there was a glimmer of hope, albeit weak. The first session was hard. Rocco did not say anything at first. He sat with his arms folded and stared at the floor. Lulu and Dante answered questions, dancing around the fundamental concerns until Rocco spoke. His voice was calm but firm. "I just want to know that I am still significant. I'd like to know if you love each other. I want to stop being scared all the time." The room went silent. Nobody expected him to state it so bluntly. Lulu reached for his hand. Dante did as well. But Rocco backed away. The therapist offered both separate and collaborative sessions. Rocco and his mom both needed room to converse freely. Over the next few weeks, layers began to peel away. LuLU discussed the horror of waking up in a changed world. Dante stated he didn't know how to let go of his bitterness. Rocco began to convey his anxiety that love was no longer enough. Progress was slow. Setbacks occurred. Old wounds have reopened. But for the first time, they were confronting the truth rather than fleeing from it. Rocco's behavior at school improved slightly. He began drawing again, this time with more color. His professors noted the shift and hoped it would continue. LuLU began spending more intentional one-on-one time with him, not attempting to relive the past but instead creating something new. Dante began leaving work earlier, attending dinners, asking meaningful questions, and listening to the responses. They were trying, not for appearances or convenience, but because they recognized that love, even when messy, required effort. One night, months after therapy began, Rocco climbed into bed with LuLU and said, "It feels better now. Not perfect, but better." She kissed the top of his head and hugged him tightly. In the next room, Dante gazed at a photo of them from years ago, when things seemed simple. He set it down and joined them. No words were exchanged, yet the gesture conveyed plenty. Their family had changed from what it had been before. It had changed, it was scarred, rattled, and still uncertain, but it was genuine. And for Rocco, that was enough to make him trust again. Love, he discovered, was not about being flawless. It was about being present, even when things fell apart. Especially then. He started his own investigation, traveling via the underground channels in Port Charles and asking questions that made even Sonny Corinthos nervous. Sonny attempted to warn him off. The truce between their families was shaky at best, and Marco stirring things up in Port Charles could set off a terrible chain reaction. But Marco wasn't listening. This was a personal matter for him, not about power or turf. Elias was a family member. Daisy, whether she realized it or not, was caught in the crossfire. Daisy, however, remained absent. And when Curtis and Jordan probed deeper into her past, they saw how vulnerable she had made herself. A diary discovered in her apartment, hidden beneath the floorboards, revealed that she had been in communication with someone she simply referred to as L. She wrote cryptically about being afraid for her safety, about someone monitoring her as she walked to her car or waited at bus stations. In her final note she stated, "If anything happens to me, it's because of what I saw at Pier 57. Pier 57 had long been a hotspot of shady dealings, ranging from illegal cargo to mob-related activity. Daisy's unintentional presence there at the wrong time may have made her a target." In a startling twist, Spinelli discovered GPS data from Daisy's ride-sharing app, suggesting that she had never returned home the night she went missing. Instead, her position had been redirected to a warehouse on the outskirts of town, held by a shell